Amazing. All right. Welcome to session 11. It is another guest day for us.
Amazing. I'm so excited about this guest.
What an honor. So we have Courtney Khimji, who is the founder and CEO of Chimera Collective, which is an international lifestyle public relations firm based in Toronto. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, part of our initiation with guests is I'm going to do an intro that's going to make you feel really uncomfortable, and we're going to highlight all the wonderful things about you. So hang tight, okay? So Courtney is currently the founder of Chimera Collective, which, as I mentioned, is an international lifestyle PR firm, and clients include L'Oreal, Sotheby's, K-Swiss, YSL Beauty, and Native Shoes. She has over 15 years of experience in the communications and PR space. She has worked for global companies including Elon Edelman, Bookmark Content and Communications before starting her own international firm 6.5 years ago. So she is an entrepreneur. She graduated from the University of Toronto and obtained her MA in Humanities from the University of Chicago. Courtney is a mother, an entrepreneur, a leader, a storyteller, and we are so honored to have you today. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you for that very kind intro.
How did that feel?
Yeah, that was quite a list.
I really appreciate it.
A little awkward.
We get that feedback a lot, but you know what? We want to showcase how amazing you are and tell your story.
Appreciate that very much.
It's so interesting, okay, before we move on, that I wonder if this is like, we should look out for this, because a lot of our female guests, like when we list their accomplishments, are uncomfortable.
Yes.
We've got to check when we have a male guest.
Yes.
He's uncomfortable. I bet
that's
he's
a good
not.
point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Damn it.
Just sitting there like, bring it.
He's like,
tell it.
I'll just
Yes.
a little bit more.
So we got to get female, like really comfortable with this.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. We are celebrating you, Courtney.
We're celebrating you. We're honoring you.
Yes.
Go, girl.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so as you know, on this podcast, when we have a guest on, we want to talk about your chapter 2 moment. So Tess is going to give us a little bit of background as to what that means and kind of lead you into your own path and journey with your chapter 2 moment.
Yes.
All right.
I'm just thinking about what I'm going to say, and I just realized every time I explain what chapter 2 means, I say it a little bit differently.
Okay, love that. That's good.
It's the heart of it is the same. So chapter 2 really refers to that time in life. It could be in your personal life, your professional life, your business, your parenting life, whatever it is, where things didn't go perfectly, and it had you then, as the name goes in chapter 2, pick up the pen and write the next chapter. Really intentionally and to the beat of your own drum, right? Like it's sometimes when you do what you're not supposed to do, or you really decide like what path you're going to walk, and you do it with a lot of intentionality. So with that, we'll leave it wide open for you, but we would love to hear, what comes up for you when we ask you, tell us about your chapter 2 moment.
Yeah, I mean, we had spoken about this a little bit before the podcast, but for me, I don't specifically feel as though I've had one singular moment. I think for someone who is an entrepreneur very much by nature, it's something that was really a natural evolution for me as I moved through different stages of my career. And I feel like it's been a series of micro moments that have, had a domino effect over time. I think that, that's sort of what the entrepreneurial journey is every day is a chapter 2, to be honest.
Yeah.
Every day things
we
go
are
wrong.
feeling that. Yeah.
Every day things go wrong. Every day you're having an event. Every day, certainly every quarter, maybe not every day, but it's a constant journey, right? And I think, the most obvious on paper answer to the question is, of course, when I started the business at the very beginning, when I took that leap of faith and left my, corporate agency job and a nice, sort of stable path forward and decided to do things more independently. That's the most obvious answer. But in reality, it's more complicated than that. But that, as the natural starting point in the story, I would say it was the beginning of the business, which was 6 years ago. And, I left my wonderful job and I started with nothing. I had no outside investment, no outside resource. I just quit and, started up the next day. And that was the beginning. But it didn't really, obviously, it wasn't easy, but it also wasn't monumentally difficult because it was something I really felt was where my career had been pointing to anyway. I had always been in roles that were very entrepreneurial by nature. So even though I was working for someone else, I was managing business units. I was being given opportunities to build structures within existing businesses. And so it really didn't feel like a crazy thing at the time, even though others may have thought that it was. It just sort of evolved naturally. I think, what's been harder is what happened after day one, and progressing through the different growth cycles of the business.
Yes. Okay. So before we go on to what happened after day one, I would love to know, what were some of the things that led up to you making that decision? I'm going to go into business for myself.
I think I saw an opportunity to build for myself. I had been building for other people successfully, and I had been leading teams and driving revenue and making money for other businesses. And that was a great way to learn and to be trained and to establish myself in the industry. But it also came with some constraints, and I wanted more independence, more freedom, more choice in terms of the work that I do, who I work with, how I do it, how I resource my teams. That's something that's very specific to the PR and marketing industries, but the resourcing question can become very difficult, and it's done in one way in big companies, and we do it very differently. So that's something where I saw an opportunity to just do it more on my own terms and in a way that felt better to me, and also work more toward work-life balance. It's very hard in big agencies to find that at a senior level, also at a junior level, just generally. And as I had my kids while I've been running the business, but as a soon-to-be mom is something that was important to me as well, as spending time with my family and finding that equilibrium.
I'm really interested to know what your kind of inner dialogue or your narrative was to yourself at that time, because it sounds like you had a lot of confidence stepping into your own business. And just for context, I think a lot of our listeners are probably maybe on the precipice of working in-house somewhere and wanting to step out on their own. I know for myself, that was a major chapter 2 moment. I had a lot going on internally that was preventing me from making that step. I mean, I really was a bit of a mess at that time. You took me to a psychic. We had to go on a retreat.
Yeah. I had her get her tarot cards done because I was like, hey,
get your shit together. This is happening. Because my inner dialogue was focusing on all the things that could go wrong. And I felt like, we weren't 20 years old living off our parents. We, had relationships and mortgages and kids. And so that really weighed on me. So I'm really actually inspired to hear that wasn't your experience. I think that's really, really good for people to hear that this is possible, right? To have a easy transition to flow into the next step. And so I'd love to know, like I said, what your narrative was, what you were telling yourself, what your inner dialogue was at that time that allowed you to have that confidence.
Yeah. I mean, not to say it wasn't. It was hard, but I was confident. That's for sure, right? And I think you have to do it as soon as possible. I think if I had waited any longer, I would have had a harder time. I did it before I was married. I was just about to get married. I didn't have kids yet. I wasn't quite there in terms of that heavier sense of responsibility. And I really believe that if I had waited another year, it would have been a whole different situation. You have to jump when you can. I wish I had done it sooner, to be honest. But there's also value in, building your CV and working and learning from other people. But it really is a timing question, I think, and you have to do it when you don't have so much to lose and have so much on the line, and just start as soon as possible. I think, the only way to build is to actually do things and not just be
Yes.
in paralysis thinking about, well, I could do it, or maybe next month, or maybe in 6 months, or whenever it is. And I really try to maintain that mentality now, even though there is more on the line for me, perhaps. But you just have to move forward even when it's difficult.
Right.
And I think that that is really critical to entrepreneurial success.
Yes. And I want to add for people that are not like pre-marriage and pre-kids, there is a way to do it when
Of
you're
course.
married and when you have kids. Like I was in that position. I had 2 kids and was married when I made the jump. But it meant I had to do it differently. It took longer. I had to keep a corporate job and build the business really slowly on my downtime. And then, you know, once I was making enough as I was in my corporate job, we could open up the business.
Yeah.
So it just took a bit longer and I had to have a little bit more strategy behind it, right?
No, but that's absolutely right. And I remember you've told me about that in the past, how you laddered that up. And I think that's a brilliant way to do it as well. And I'm very aligned with both of you in terms of going into it with, you know, the least amount of risk possible as well. That's also what makes it feasible, is do it in a way where you're not taking on a huge amount of debt, or you're not spending tons of money from the beginning. You have to make money first. Just find a way to generate some revenue. And then it gives you opportunities to build the brand. I didn't have a website for the first 6 months. I had, you know, 1 staff member for a while. You know, you have to really take baby steps and not just be dropping cash, because you're going to spend the money in the wrong way anyway when you do it at the gate. So you know, having different iterations is okay. And I think it's, you know, it's okay to just look at it exactly as you said, as a process. And you might not now, when I look back on day 1 and I'm like, oh God, what were we doing? But it's how you learn. You know? And you should be embarrassed by what you're doing at the beginning.
I totally agree with that. Yes.
Because you're not progressing.
You weren't experimenting if you're not embarrassed.
Yeah. And I look at our social media sometimes.
You're not growing, right? So
yes. Like if we look at our social media from when we started, it's so embarrassing. But I've intentionally left it up because I want to remember that and see.
It's really grounding.
Same, 100%. But that's okay. You know, everyone's learning, everyone's figuring it out. And as long as you are moving forward, like that's the thing that I try to constantly measure and evaluate is, are we just taking as many steps forward always as possible?
Yes. And I love your point there, to just do it, to take a step. We talk about that a lot, that really differentiates entrepreneurs from people that want to be entrepreneurs, is just doing it. Take the first step.
Yeah. Leap and the net will appear, right? Like you have to believe.
And that doesn't mean burn the boats, right? Like you can do it in a really slow process way, like we just described. But I think it's like, before you take the first step, it's like, just make the decision. I'm doing this or I'm not. Make the decision. And then what's the first small step I can take in support of this decision? And then go from there.
So talk to us a little bit more about your journey. You said your chapter 2 really started showing up for you as you were in the work of building your business. So what were some of those challenges that you faced during that time?
Certainly the pandemic was a wild ride for us. It just absolutely turned the business upside down. I also had 2 babies during those years, pre and post pandemic, or pre and during pandemic. So, you know, in the span of 5 years, I started the business, had a baby, hit the pandemic, had another baby, and there was just a lot going on. And the business was really growing. It was taking off. There was a lot to manage. And so it was a lot of recalibrating for me on a sort of frequent basis to try to keep up with the changes happening in the business, as well as the changes that were happening just in my life and personally. And so that has been a big learning curve for sure on all levels. The pandemic in particular, it was in our industry and public relations and marketing, there was an immediate halt on spending for about 3 months, almost across the board. Everyone pulled out of their contracts immediately. And then business immediately picked back up. You know, once the panic sort of subsided. It wasn't a long-term problem, but it was a major short-term impact. And so as a small business, of course, that has, you know, substantial implications in terms of day-to-day operations. And as I'm sure you both went through as well, there was no childcare. I was very pregnant.
Yes.
Had two
Yeah.
small children around the house. So it was very, very challenging for sure.
And so where did you kind of pull your strength from during that time? I mean, there's nothing more all-encompassing than when business comes to a halt, when you are the founder, when you have
Right.
people that you're responsible for. How did you take care of yourself during that time? What was, again, your kind of mindset to keep yourself going and motivated?
Honestly, I don't know. It's that whole period that's like a black hole in my brain.
Yeah.
I really do not
This is resonating.
recover
Yes.
from it.
Yeah.
Certainly, my strength came from my immediate support network. So both
Yes.
personally and professionally. So my husband, my close friends, my colleagues within our team who were incredibly supportive and flexible with all of the changes that were happening. But that's it. It was just so hard.
Yes.
It was just kind of an endurance game. I think it was just a question of keeping going every day, and I just really tried to just keep the lights on and power through and pull every possible resource and support I could find. And then immediately things got better, but then the damage had been done. So it was just operationally very complicated. Even though it rebounded incredibly quickly, like much more quickly than I had imagined it would. And business was, within a year, business was booming. Like it was better than before the pandemic, but it was a flash in the pan that was very problematic from a business ownership perspective.
Definitely.
You said a word that like hit me in the bones. It's an endurance game.
Yeah.
Like entrepreneurship. Holy shit.
Yeah.
It's like stamina, right? Like you need the stamina and the endurance and there are times where you just think like, oh, I don't have it. Hold on. I need to read a text that I sent to Alisha this morning, okay? This is what I sent to her first thing this morning. I don't got this.
Wait, what? Sorry, I didn't hear.
I text her at 7:32 a.m. saying, I don't got this. Meaning our day-to-day in the business. Like it is a stamina game.
Yeah.
100%.
I've never heard it put like that before. You said the word endurance and I was just like, oh, yeah, that really
this is it.
Home.
This is the real, that is the real work. And so what did you learn about yourself during that time? I think, anytime we're put through endurance challenges, it is a mental game, right? What did you learn about yourself?
I think I'm still reflecting on that, quite honestly. But I think what I've learned throughout the course of owning the business is that I do have good intuition and I have a good natural sense of things in terms of making good business choices and good leadership choices, and that I need to just trust that and, continue on. And, one thing that I think is really special about you two is that you have each other to lean on. And I have a wonderful team, but we're not, it's not a partnership. I have whole ownership of the business. So it is quite isolating sometimes to just be sitting there thinking like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But, I've learned from that and I have gained, I
think that's really relatable for a lot of people that are solopreneurs. So like, what are some of the things you do to support yourself in that?
Definitely reaching out to other entrepreneurs. I have a network of people in the same industry, also in other industries, who I know are like yourselves, who are living the same experience, the same journey. And I really do feel like when you're talking to someone else who's a business owner, there's just this shared language where you totally get each other and you totally understand what it's like. And that is something that is hard to explain to anyone else. So having those conversations with peers who are outside my business but in a similar space has been really beneficial, with mentors, with people that I trust who can help, advise me when things are difficult, for sure has been helpful. And also, something that I'm working on, still work in progress, but also trying to get away from the business sometimes and not be so deep in it. I think there's an assumption about founders and owners that you have to work 24/7 and it has to be this like hashtag startup culture that's really toxic in my opinion, and just never taking a break. So I think that's something I'm trying to embrace more as well, and just
that's a great one. Love
get some perspective.
Really good. And so as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, we have a lot of people who are fresh in their career or maybe making a career transition at this time and could be thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. So if you were speaking to somebody who was going through a similar experience that you did, starting your business, scaling your business, what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
I think you need to, the obvious thing that people say a lot is you need to say no. You need to know what to turn away from. And I think that's really valuable. And you also need to know what to say yes to. And you need to be willing to be brave sometimes to go after things that seem like a stretch or that seem unlikely. In my business, there's a lot of competitive pitches, for example, where you have to go up against the big guys and you have to be willing to put your name in the ring, and you have to be willing to step up and say, yeah, I want this. And I think that that's something you have to practice. It doesn't always come naturally, but just putting yourself out there as much as possible. And again, like tapping into the resources that you have available, whatever they are.
That was really good. I feel like we can't hear that enough around know what to say no to, or just don't be afraid to say no to things.
Yes, for sure.
Really good one.
Okay, I want to pivot a little bit and talk specifically about Chimera, your baby that you have grown over 6.5 years. What gets you excited? Tell us about the future of Chimera. What do you see coming for you?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point now where I'm really excited to see my senior team stepping up into real leadership roles. So that is giving me the space and the room to think about what's next, which honestly, until recently was not always the case. I was so deep in the day-to-day management and growing our client accounts and working directly with our clients that there wasn't always that opportunity to take some perspective and really think about scaling and the next phase of growth. So that's been a big transition that I've felt in the business recently, and that is exciting for me. We're always looking to grow our portfolio of clients that we represent. We've recently signed Reformation, which is the clothing brand, which was really exciting.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. Yeah, we're their agency of record now for Canada. So that's a big new mandate.
Yes.
Fantastic.
We're excited about that, and that's a new area of focus for sure. And then just continuing to grow, continuing to invest in the team, develop new service capabilities, that kind of thing.
Beautiful. And what kind of clients do you typically work with? Do you specifically stick to retail and beauty, or do you work across industries? No,
we're across industries. We're generalists. We do a lot of everything from travel to tech to, lifestyle beauty for sure. Some corporate comms as well that are more in the sort of finance or, corporate space. But we're quite versatile. We really look for clients that we are a fit with on a culture level, that share our values, where we can build long-term partnerships and really grow with the team. So no, we like to keep it versatile and a little bit of everything.
Excellent. All right, it's that time.
Speed round?
Speed round.
Okay,
I've got a couple questions written down. Are you feeling these? Do you need one?
I'm going to make one up.
Okay, I love this.
Okay.
She likes to do this. Go for it.
So you live in Toronto, correct?
I do, yes.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
You know what? I'm really happy in Toronto right now. It's my home base. I lived in Paris for 5 years. I went to school in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
I've had a chance to move around quite a bit. And so I'm happy here. But I mean, I love to be beachside. So I wouldn't say no to LA.
Yes.
Love that.
Really feeling that right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is aside from Session 11, what is your favorite podcast to listen to?
Oh, I listen to lots of podcasts. What's been good lately? I mean, if we're going for just like pop culture, I listen to Not Skinny But Not Fat quite a lot. I mean, obviously,
Love her.
Session 11 is right at the top.
Hands down.
Some of the Canadian news outlets have really great podcasts. So I'm one of the public, well, Lance Bay Street Bull, he has a podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot. What else? I have to like open up my app and go through my list, but I do a lot of driving, so I'm a big podcast listener.
Yes.
So good.
I find that's such a good way to unwind, actually. I know we've been
Right.
talking about how to like disconnect and unwind is listening to these podcasts.
Yeah.
Are you going to give us another one? Did you have another one?
No.
Okay. What has been the most impactful book that you've read in the last 3 years? Could be business, could be wellness, could be fictional. What sticks out in your mind?
I just read Sarah Polly's memoir, Run Toward the Danger, and it was just breathtaking. It was spectacular.
Oh,
yeah, beautiful book. Talking about the series of essays talking about her experience as a young actor, as a woman, as a mom, as now Oscar winner. Just really interesting slice of Canadian culture. So
very cool.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful.
Excellent. That was not on my radar, but it is now.
Me either.
Love that.
I'm a big memoir person. I really enjoy memoirs.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Courtney. It was so lovely to hear about your story, learn a little bit more about you, and really inspiring, I think, for women that are maybe embarking on this journey in their career.
So many like good, tangible nuggets here. Yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.